Right, here's a story of persecution from Pakistan, which, as you may or may not know, is number 5 in the top 50 countries in the world, according to Open Doors, who do some very authentic and trustworthy research into this. Number 5 in the top 50. So police in Pakistan's Punjab province arrested 2 Christian nurses on blasphemy charges after hospital staff accused them of scratching, wait for it, hold on to your, whatever it is that keeps you grounded, hold on to your Jesus, as it were, accused them of, drumroll please, death penalty, like potential, scratching a sticker, you heard it here first, with a verse from the Quran written on it, off of a cupboard. Like I said, death penalty potentiality. So one of the nurses was allegedly attacked with a knife by a colleague, which, call me crazy, doesn't seem like a measured response from a medical professional. The nurses, identified as Mariam Lau and third-year student Navish Aruj, who work in civil hospital in Punjab's Faisalabad city, were arrested on Friday, according to the United Kingdom-based non-profit Centre for Legal Aid Assistance and Settlement, and also according to my friend in Pakistan. The police complaint alleges that a Muslim nurse, identified as Ruxana, witnessed Aruj scratching and removing the sticker on a hospital cupboard and handing it to Lau. So in the first instance, the first person that I mentioned didn't partake in any of this. I can't believe I'm justifying a sticker being taken off of a cupboard. My friend in Pakistan actually tells me that they were asked to remove this thing, and I think it's the method of removal. It's pretty pathetic either way. So according to the Washington, D.C.-based American Center for Law and Justice, a video circulated over social media showed an employee identified as Mohammed Wakas calling Lau vulgar names and telling a room full of other employees that she tore down a sticker carrying a Muslim prayer. I didn't get my small violin ready for this one. I do apologize. Then he said that when he found out about it, he confronted the Christian nurse, Mariam. I'm sure it's complete coincidence that she's a Christian. He said, I am a Muslim. How can a Muslim sit quietly over blasphemy of his prophet? The ACLJ report states. Then he proudly, I'll say that again, proudly told the employees gathered in the room that he attacked Mariam with a knife, but failed when the blade broke, only therefore injuring her arm. But still proud, ever so proud. An aggressive mob gathered outside the hospital when police came to make the arrest and threatened to kill the 2 nurses, according to a video posted by Pak Adam TV Ministries. According to ACLJ, charges have been filed under Section 295B, which you may remember I discussed briefly in the case of Tabitha Gill. It's also kind of reminiscent of Asia Bibi. And you may remember the 2 guys who were reading their Bible in the park in Pakistan and were also charged with the potential death penalty consequence of this Section 295B, which outlaws the desecration of the Quran or extract therefrom, which is punishable by life in prison. Okay, so as long as nobody's getting carried away or overreacting here. This is not the first incident of its kind, but in the past we have seen how people use this law to settle their personal grudges or punish their rivals, and that's absolutely true. I've brought stories to you with those criteria embedded within them. And that was a quote from CLAS, CLAAS, UK Director Nasir Said in a statement. I still remember 2009 when a Lahore Muslim factory owner was accused of committing blasphemy for removing an old calendar inscribed with holy Quranic verses from a wall. A factory worker Oh my gosh. A factory worker killed him and 2 other men, and the enraged mob also assaulted management employees and set the factory on fire. Saeed argues that Pakistan's blasphemy laws continue to imprison and claim the lives of innocent people. You're not joking, Saeed, are you? Without government action to reform the blasphemy law, Saeed said that people like Waqas are emboldened to take the law into their own hands. And I certainly agree with him. I wonder, whether these murderers are languishing somewhere in a cell or being treated as sort of local heroes. We saw the case of the American guy who was in court, I don't know if it was an open or closed court, but the building was certainly protected with security. He was shot in front of the judge by a young man who walked into the court unarmed. So questions there as to where he got the weapon. When he was taken away because he was arrested, because obviously it's a US citizen who's been murdered in a Pakistan court, the security were taking selfies with him, smiling, the one finger salute, all that stuff. He was basically like some sort of national hero. It's revolting. It makes me feel sick. In January, another Christian nurse who I just mentioned, 30-year-old Tabitha Nazir Gill, was accused of blasphemy at Sobraj Maternity Hospital in Karachi City in Sindh province, where she had worked for 9 years. And where she was also beaten and humiliated, having it recorded. Something like what teenagers do in this country, although, of course, other teenagers are available. So that was reported at the time by International Christian Concern. A Muslim co-worker who was not identified allegedly made the accusation after a personal dispute over receiving cash tips from hospital patients. Oh, right. According to the ICC report, the hospital's head nurse instructed all medical staff not to receive cash tips from patients. Tabitha reportedly reminded the co-worker who she saw taking money from a patient. She reminded the nurse of this instruction, or rather the co-worker. The co-worker then accused Gill of committing blasphemy. What an utter coincidence, said nobody. Hospital staff reportedly beat Gill. Not only reportedly, there were photos showing her being harassed, harangued, and beaten after, completely innocently, one presumes, tying her up with ropes and locking her in a room before the police arrived, who subsequently let her go after a short investigation and then got her back again after the mob were baying for blood and surrounded the police station. Oh, right. Please, Jesus. The blasphemy law, which is embedded in sections 295 and 298 of Pakistan's penal code, is frequently misused for personal revenge. Whilst it permits the death penalty for those convicted of insulting Islam or its prophet Mohammed, it carries no provision to punish a false accuser or a false witness of blasphemy. You couldn't make it up. So let me just summarize that in heavy sarcasm. You can get the death penalty for this allegation, potentially even if it's false. We saw that Asia Bibi spent, I think, 8 years. I think 8 years on death row at least. I don't know how long she was incarcerated in entirety, was forced to flee the country. Her brother-in-law had his throat slashed. Some of her legal team were assassinated, and she was then found completely innocent. So we've got that on the one hand. And yet the people who accused her in that case, who ruined her life up until the point of her acquittal and release, and also ended the life in a, not directly, but of her brother-in-law and some of her legal counsel, there's just no recourse to charge them with wasting police time, false accusations, false witness. Nah, don't be ridiculous. Okay, so Islamic radicals also use the law to target religious minorities. Christians, Shias, Ahmadiyas, and Hindus. So for anybody who's not familiar with those last three groups, well, Shias and Ahmadiyas are Muslims, basically, but they're not seen as Muslims by Sunnis, who are in the majority, I think, in Pakistan. So a Lahore-based group called the Centre for Social Justice, that's an oxymoron, recently reported that 200 people, 200 different souls, 200 potential brothers, children of people, marriage partners, aunties, uncles, brothers, sisters, etc. 200 were accused of blasphemy in 2020 alone. And that's a record number of cases in 1 year. In total, the group reports that at least 1,855 people, individual people with families, with hopes, with dreams, with, aspirations, with faith potentially, have been charged under Pakistan's blasphemy laws since 1987. And yet false accusers, nothing. International advocates have long called on Pakistan to reform its penal code, as it's often used to persecute religious minorities. They should also be calling for the reform of this particular section of the penal code, because how can you blaspheme a dead human being? Muhammad is not, well, the case could be argued, but according to Muslims, he's not Allah. Blasphemy is blasphemy. That's the whole point. Insulting a dead person, even if it's a dead prophet in your own eyes, is still not blasphemy. Maybe sacrilegious, maybe insulting, maybe very hurtful, but it's not technically blasphemy. So a Pakistani Christian called Shahbaz Bhatti, who served as Minister of Minority Affairs, that would include Christians, was assassinated in March 2011 after calling for the blasphemy laws repeal. Just calling for it to be repealed. Former Punjab Governor Salman Taseer was also assassinated for his opposition to the country's blasphemy law. So it's somehow seen as blasphemous to advocate against the blasphemy law, it seems. Both men advocated for Asia Bibi, who like I just mentioned her, she was a Christian woman who was completely innocent of the charges, but suffered immeasurably as a result of a false accusation by some Muslim women, basically, in a nutshell. She'd been sentenced to death and had that hanging over her until basically international concern put it to the forefront, because potentially one can have the death sentence passed, as it were, and just remain languishing in jail because nobody wants to actually touch the case and have it stay in court, as it were. Just outrageous, like for the appeal process, obviously, is what I mean. So both of these men who advocated for Christian woman Asia Bibi, were assassinated. Surely a coincidence, I hear you cry. And she was, as I said, years later acquitted by the Pakistan Supreme Court, the same court, coincidentally, who decided to send the victim of a kidnapping at gunpoint, marital rape and forced conversion back to her abductors after a lower court had deemed that she should go into a women's refuge. Couldn't make it up. So let me just come back to the little screen where the live chat is, so I can see what's going on. I can actually go on. I mean, it's just a limitless supply of persecution stuff. I can continue, or I can leave this as a shorter bid. So I don't know who's yet to have their tea. I just don't know. So obviously everybody's gone quiet in the live chat because I'm now asking for an opinion. But I don't want to be too jokey because it's just a very heavy subject and it's quite fresh as well. This has happened very recently. Over, let me say it again. A sticker. A sticker, an actual sticker has been removed from a cupboard. Can anyone cope with the horror? No, and the Cherokee in the live chat is just pointing out something which is absolutely true. Yahweh is not Allah. Allah says he is Yahweh. He claims to have revealed the Torah and the Psalms and the Injil, but he's not, because he can't remember what he said when he was Yahweh. He just can't remember. He says it's okay to lie. Yahweh says loads of things, literally loads of things. I think I did a video with Jay Smith, Allah versus Yahweh. Not like fight night, but just the discrepancies and the differences, because one, Yahweh is the most high God, and number two, Allah is a false god and a figment of somebody's imagination. So yeah, all right, I may just, because I'm not getting any indication of preference whatsoever, I'm just going to read a couple of notes here that I've got from Raymond Ibrahim. So Islamic doctrine sheds a lot of light onto Christian persecution, actually. So in short, Sharia, which is the body of teachings that Muslims are obligated to adhere to on pain of pain, literally, teaches hate for and violence against all non-Muslims. I can hear the screeches of denial, but I'm going to cover the verses. In the words of Quran 60, so Surah 60, Ayah 4, we, in brackets Muslims, renounce you, in brackets non-Muslims. Enmity and hate shall forever reign between us. I'm just laughing because I can't imagine Yahweh ever, till you believe in Allah alone. That's an actual religious piece of scripture, not from my God, literally. So, enmity and hate shall forever reign. So non-Jesus-y. Ugh. Right, anyway, so these sentiments are to be applied to all non-Muslims. And don't forget, I just mentioned Sunnis don't think Shias are Muslims. Shias don't think Sunnis are Muslims. Ahmadiyya, I think they're pretty chill, but at least a lot of Muslims don't think a lot of other Muslims are Muslims. So they're also kafir. So this is even if they are their parents, their children, their siblings, extended family, which you can see in Surah 58:22, also Surah 3:28, Surah 4:89, Surah 4:144, Surah 5:54, Surah 6:40, and 9:23. So the jury is in. That's official. So based on such verses, any number of fatwas, which are authoritative Islamic decrees from venerable sheikhs, I can't really speak Arabic, seriously, they call on Muslims to do things like hate their non-Muslim wives. Why did you marry them? While physically enjoying or benefiting from them, like, and to hate and be disloyal to the Western nations they reside in, like straight up. In short, and as the Islamic State once explained in an unambiguously titled article, Why We Hate You and Why We Fight You, this is the direct quote. We hate you first and foremost because you are disbelievers. And this is bracketed now. It says, lest it seem that ISIS is an aberration that hardly speaks for Muslims, a Pew poll found that in just 11 nations, as many as 287 million Muslims, just those who answered honestly, potentially, sympathized and or supported ISIS. So despite their much vaunted people of the book nonsense, which is the significance of which Muslim apologists have strained beyond belief and beyond credibility and credulity, basically. Apart from this people of the book stuff, both Christians and Jews are ultimately also classified as infidels, which is kafar, or the singular kafir. So Quran 5:51 warns Muslims against taking the Jews and Christians as friends and allies. Whoever among you takes them for friends and allies, he is surely one of them, i.e. he too is an infidel. And we see in other places the behavior which is prescribed toward infidels. Christians are further singled out by name for condemnation. So here we go. Quran 5:73, Surah 5, Ayah 73 declares that infidels, wait for it, infidels are they who say God is one of three. I got to stop like Raymond's narration at this point and say that's not actually Christians, but Muhammad was never very good at knowing what we believe. He thought Mary was part of the Trinity. Now apparently anyone who says their God is one of three. Christians say there is only one God. There is no other God. They do say three persons in one, but they've literally got it the wrong way around. So one of three. We'll go with one of three. We know who they're talking about. So it is a reference to the Trinity, obviously, although a skewed one. So Quran 5:72 says, infidels are they who say God is the Christ, in brackets Jesus, son of Mary. So that seals the deal. They've actually got that one right. And Quran 9:30 complains that the Christians say the Christ is the Son of God. May Allah's curse be upon them. And apparently that was revealed by Allah. So he talks about himself in the third person. That's just great. Okay, the significance of these verses can only be understood when one understands the significance of the word translated here as infidel, kafir. The kafir, the non-believer, just that's it. The simple act of non-believing makes you a kafir. And we are, let me just let you in on a secret, the mortal enemy of Allah and his prophet. It just sounds like some second-rate psychological thriller. But yes, kafir, the mortal enemy of Allah and his prophet. Their followers, i.e. Muslims, are obligated to war on them, kill them, and subjugate them whenever possible. That is, it's only when it's possible, not if you're too busy or anything. As for what Muslims should do when attacking infidels is infeasible, for example, because the non-Muslims are currently stronger, Quran Surah 3, Ayah 28 advises this: let believers not take for friends and allies infidels rather than believers. And whoever does this shall have no relationship left with Allah. He's going to be pretty upset. No relationship left with Allah unless you but guard yourselves against them, taking precautions. And I read here, this is one of the verses that endorses taqiyya, which is basically Allah-endorsed lying, the notorious doctrine that promotes deception of non-Muslims for gain. Okay, so the final word on both Christians and Jews was revealed in Surah 9, Ayah 29, because it's not chronologically ordered. So fight those among the people of the book, that is Jews and Christians, for anyone who's wondering what book. So, fight those among the people of the book who do not believe in Allah, nor the last day, who do not forbid what Allah and his messenger, check that one, towards the blasphemy claims against Muhammad. So, yeah, fight those who believe not in Allah. This is my translation that I know, but they are Jews and Christians. Fight those who believe not in Allah nor the last day, who do not forbid that which Allah and his messenger have forbidden, and who do not embrace the religion of truth, not Christianity, Islam, until, so you fight them until they pay the jizya, which is basically, what can you call it? Extortion money, blood money. It says here a monetary tribute, but it's not as fluffy sounding as that. And they must pay it with willing submissiveness. They must feel themselves, it says here, utterly subdued. The translation I usually have, it says, and feel themselves humiliated, which has a different connotation slightly. With that, the fate of Jews and Christians, according to the Quran, is sealed. And like all other infidels, Christians and Jews are also to be hated, warred upon, and subjugated. So there's that. But what I would say in closing is that obviously pagans, etc., they have to die, whereas Christians and Jews are given the option of dimitude, which is like second-class citizenship, being unable to repair your churches, to congregate in public, to worship openly, a bit North Korean in that respect, that kind of thing. But I do believe there's a hadith that says that Allah will make the Christians, those who follow Isa, as it were, superior until the day of judgment, at which point he'll just settle any squabbles between us, as it were. So there's that. I mean, that must cheer you up, surely. Okay, so 2 Christian nurses are at this present time probably absolutely besides themselves with just anguished. They were asked, as far as I know, they were asked to do something. They were asked to remove this thing, and yet they did it in the wrong way. And it's definitely not, in my opinion, and I pray your opinion, something worthy of a lifetime imprisonment or death. I mean, come on, get a grip. It's a piece of paper. Even if it's got the most beautiful sentiment, if it's not the original parchment, well, it wouldn't be for Islam, but if it's not some really dated, ancient, like if it's not the desecration of holy scripture, as in a tomb or a cave or some big mosque somewhere, it's just a piece of Western paper printed with ink, I mean, it's a shame, yeah, sure. But get over it. It's, yeah. Yes, they're Pakistan. Sorry, I'm just reading the chat. Yes, they're Pakistani nurses. If you just rewind afterwards, their names and their details. One of them's only a student nurse. So, yeah, I'd like to ask you all actually to pray for these 2 girls / ladies. They're young people anyway. They're in a caring profession already. They're ready to dedicate their lives. One of them is definitely a Christian. The other one, I don't think it referenced her religion. But yeah, they're in a caring profession. They're obviously willing to sacrifice time and long hours and all of that to serve other people, which is quite a Christian rather ethic anyway. And as we read, like numerous instances of, and I certainly have over the years also, these charges are used as a weapon against people. And in the case of Asia Bibi, were completely and utterly fabricated and false. And as we also just heard, the false accusers and the false witnesses just get to skip on home and get on with their lives. And yeah, and these people also, the woman that grassed her up, Ruxana, she's also a nurse. This is what the guy who attacked her with a knife and was proud about it, I think potentially a doctor. So Pakistan, where is your shame? Where is your common sense? Where is your professionalism within your medical community? Where's your embarrassment? Like internationally, people are picking up finally on these stories that you've managed to keep. Well, I don't know. Actually, the mainstream is complicit in keeping them quiet. What are you doing over there? Like, seriously, sort it out. Yeah, it upsets me quite a lot. You might be able to tell. Anyway, please do actually, if you're unsure of any of the facts that I've just recounted to you, I do actually have them in Urdu as well, because, I have a friend in Pakistan who sends me this stuff, but I also have it in English. But do a bit of fact checking for yourself. See if you can't find this story somewhere else. I'm pretty sure you can, because it's known about in Pakistan at any rate. So yeah, if you speak Urdu, go for it. And what I would say to anyone else who's has any common sense and knows that I actually look into these things before I start broadcasting on them. The absence of these stories in Western mainstream media is utterly unfortunate. However, it doesn't presuppose that these stories don't happen, because at great risk to themselves, independent or non-profit organizations get these stories and they do publicize them. The BBC can just carry on covering Prince Philip's passing. Anywho, sorry, I did get a bit irate there. I shall be going now. I'm going to pop over to Discord for anybody who wants to come and say hello. The link is in the description box, as is the article that I just read from, at least one of them, the 2 Christian nurses, that story. Yeah, please pray for those 2 ladies. Pray for their families. I don't know if they've got children, but they've certainly got, potentially spouses, definitely parents, neighbours, co-workers who aren't cretins, like people who care about them. So pray for those people also. Pray that the Lord would fill them with the assurity of his promises for them. And yeah, pray for all Pakistani Christian women and girls, because they are at quite a high risk, compared to Western Christian women, of being abducted actually at gunpoint and forcibly raped, married, and converted. And if anybody doesn't believe me, just look at the statistics. All right then. God bless you. Do come to Discord if you're feeling chatty. Otherwise, I will see you as soon as I have something else to bring you. All right. God bless you. Bye.